Hey, listeners, it's Leon Nafok. I'm here to tell you about a brand new series from me and Prologue Projects, an Audible original series called Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer, the story of a television show that changed the world and the man who gave it his name. But did you know that before the Jerry Springer Show made him notorious all over the world, Springer was something else entirely? A respected Midwestern politician, the progressive mayor of a major Rust Belt city, a man many saw as a future leader in Democratic politics. How did this idealistic rising star, with his lofty political ambitions, take a turn in such a radically different direction? You can find the whole series available now on Audible. Just search for Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer on the Audible app, or go to audible.com/Springer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 437 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
Did you have a good Memorial weekend?
I had a good weekend, yeah.
Yeah, I did too. The kids came up, and they actually stayed for like 5 days. They stayed till Wednesday.
Wow.
Which was awesome.
That is good.
So we got to spend a lot of time with them.
My boy came in town from LA, so I got to see him. And then him and me went over and hung out with my daughter and my son-in-law, and that was good too.
Yeah, good time.
Yeah.
Good time. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout-outs. We had Merritt Anderson.
Hey, Merritt.
Aaron Kane.
I think it's Aaron.
Aaron. And Diane Dreyer.
Hey, Diane.
Angie West.
What's going on, Angie?
Rachel Drew.
Well, thanks, Rachel.
Crystal Strotkamp.
There's Crystal.
Veronica Goff.
Veronica.
Tasha Volk.
Well, hey, Tasha.
Lori Prusak.
Pusak.
Which you said in a very strange way on Patreon. We had Kristen Graves.
Hey, Kristen.
And last but not least, Jade Ryan.
Hey, Jade.
Then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Melissa Caruth.
The Caruth is in the house.
Yep. Appreciate all the support. Speaking of Patreon, we dropped a new Patreon episode on Saturday night. It's on Joseph Villani and Raquel Garajal. And these two kind of plotted the murder of a marijuana dealer.
Yeah.
They wanted to take his stash, his money, his car, his watch. But it's really, the stories they told and then what was proven out by their text messages and their digital footprint.
Just not good storytellers.
No, absolutely not. We also have a new episode out on True Crime All the Time Unsolved, where we're talking about 14-year-old Tristan Dilley, who was found dead in her bedroom in 2017. Phone records led to a 19-year-old named Paul Adams, who had been secretly communicating with Tristan for weeks. So this is a very interesting episode in that I think most people would call it more unresolved than unsolved.
Yeah, so for the ones that don't typically like listening to unsolved cases, go out and listen to this.
Yeah, this one is not solved, but, pretty much so. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am.
We're talking about Melanie McGuire. Melanie and Bill McGuire closed on their first home on April 28, 2004. 2 days later, Melanie filed a restraining order against her husband, claiming Bill hit her before leaving the house. Bill was missing for several days until his dismembered remains were found in 3 suitcases in the Chesapeake Bay. And it didn't take long for Melanie to become the main suspect.
That's a lot of things happening right there.
It's also quite a number of suitcases. Bill McGuire grew up in New Jersey in a troubled household, according to the Morristown Daily Record. He and his sisters left the home as teenagers. Bill moved in with his friend Lynn Polsky and later married Lynn's sister, Marcy Polk.
Do you have any friends that left home early?
No, but I had a friend whose sister left home as a pretty young teenager.
Yeah.
And struck out on her own, which we always thought was strange.
I had a couple friends in that same
vein.
Yeah. And I wonder why. We wonder why. I mean, no one ever tells you why.
Well, and you also don't know what's going on in the house, probably.
Yeah.
Like we always say, nobody really knows what goes on behind closed doors. How bad is it? What are they trying to get away from? Bill graduated high school and joined the Navy. In 1982, he worked as a computer specialist for the military. He married Marcy in 1986. After she graduated high school, Bill was discharged in 1990, and the couple moved to Edison, New Jersey.
Trying to think what a computer specialist would have been back then,
Well, obviously they had computers in the early 80s, but they were nothing like what we're used to today. Marcy told the Daily Record that Bill was physically and emotionally abusive, and their marriage eventually came to an end. During their separation, Marcy went to Bill's apartment and met Melanie Slate, whom he was having an affair with. And okay, if you have a person who is both physically and emotionally abusive, that's going to be a bad marriage. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But then if that person is also cheating at the same time, okay, very tough to keep a marriage together or even keep a happy relationship with all those things.
I mean, you're already struggling over the abuse, and then you have to worry about the cheating. Yeah. But I'm guessing, Bill probably learned this from his childhood home.
It could be, right? We don't have all the details, but it did say it was a troubled household. Marcy told the Daily Record she was young and naive, like I once was. I know it sounds awful, but he probably got what he deserved. And obviously she's talking about what is going to happen to Bill later on. And yeah, it does sound awful, but Gibbs, I think this was a woman who was not happy with this guy.
Yeah.
He was abusive towards her. He cheated on her. It wasn't like she had a soft spot in her heart for him.
Yeah, like, he was such a great guy. She's not going to say that.
Sources didn't provide much information on Melanie's early life. However, her mother, Linda Caparera, told 48 Hours that Melanie was every mother's dream. She never got in trouble and was a good student.
I think that's what moms would say about me too.
Like all moms or your mom?
All moms.
Oh, okay. You're just like, all moms around the world would say this about me. Melanie and Bill married in June 1999. Their first son was born less than a year later. The McGuires lived in an apartment in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Melanie worked as a nurse at a fertility clinic. Bill was a computer program analyst for the New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark. So we said, right, he was a computer specialist in the military. He got out and continued to work in that field. Now, Melanie was a nurse at a fertility clinic. And I know you have a lot of experience with being handed a cup and a magazine. For what reason, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel like you just go into these places for
recreational,
the material, which does not seem right at all.
Sometimes I'm just, there's
bored,
really nothing to do that day. I'm going to go down to the lab.
By the time their second son was born, Bill and Melanie had grown apart. Melanie said that this was partially due to Bill's trips to Atlantic City, where he gambled often. She told 48 Hours in a 2007 interview that Bill became volatile. He once called her after getting a speeding ticket and was furious. She hung up on him and he called back and cursed at her. He threatened to kill her if she was home when he returned. She didn't believe him, but she was still scared.
Yeah, I don't know how that would come across. Like, if you're still home, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, I don't think it would be something that, most spouses would want to hear. But he's mad because he got a speeding ticket.
Well, slow down or don't complain about it if you get a ticket. It's not her fault.
In 2002, Melanie began having an affair with Dr. Bradley Miller, one of the partners at the fertility clinic. Like Melanie, Dr. Miller was married with young children. Miller would later testify that they talked about getting married, buying a house together, and having kids, but neither of them had plans to divorce their spouses anytime soon.
Sounds like a Hallmark show, or maybe Hallmark always has a happy ending, doesn't it?
Yes, I don't think a lot of the Hallmark movies are about, cheating and emotionally and physically abusive husbands and stuff like that.
It's more like a Lifetime show.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd probably find that on Lifetime as opposed to Hallmark. Melanie said about the affair, as quoted by 48 Hours, "I was looking for attention, affection, understanding, and I found it there. And I am deeply, deeply ashamed of that."
But I get it. She was looking for the opposite of what she was getting at home. And like she said, she found that. But it wasn't the right way to do it. So she's ashamed of it. But at the time, it sounds like it fit the need.
Melanie told Dr. Miller that Bill once threatened to take their sons and disappeared if she ever filed for divorce. One of Melanie's coworkers testified that she discussed the high cost of her own divorce with Melanie in the months leading up to the murder. So there's a couple of things there. Threats against Melanie if she were to file for divorce, and then the money aspect, right? You start hearing about, one of your friends, one of your coworkers' divorce and how much it costs. Does that play a factor in what is to come?
I think it does.
Both of those things.
Yeah.
According to State versus McGuire, Melanie regretted her marriage and didn't want to purchase a house with Bill. But on April 24, 2004, the couple closed on their first home. They purchased a $500,000 home in the Asbury section of Franklin Township. 48 Hours asked Melanie why she would agree to buy a house. If she was having marriage problems and wanted a divorce, Melanie said she did it for their children because they weren't going to end the marriage anytime soon.
Well, we do a lot of things for our kids.
Yeah, we do. I mean, you also, I think, have to take some of the stuff that Melanie says with a grain of salt.
For sure.
Some of it I'm sure is true. Some of it is sprinkled with truth, and some of it could be an outright lie. In a future complaint against Bill, Melanie wrote that he was obsessed with purchasing their home, adding he would go through periods of not sleeping for 48 hours, literally spending every minute that he was not at work, looking at real estate listings. I don't think that's healthy.
I don't think it's healthy at all. Missing out on sleep.
The couple returned to their apartment after closing. Bill called the gas company at 5:37 p.m. to transfer their account to their new address. At 5:44 and 5:59, Bill called two friends to tell them about the new house. So it does seem like Bill was a guy who was really fixated on this house.
Yeah, really happy about, finally buying it.
Later that evening, Bill did not return a call from the seller, which he had done promptly on other occasions. There's no evidence that Bill spoke to anyone after 6:10 p.m. According to State versus McGuire, the lack of activity was unusual because Bill was active on his phone and his BlackBerry.
So one, he wanted this house really bad. So I find it strange that he didn't call the seller back. And then two, BlackBerry. I had a BlackBerry. Those were cool back in the day.
Never liked him.
Really?
Not a fan. Especially once the iPhone came out.
Well, after the
that
iPhone,
was it.
Yeah.
And that was like 2004. So you were probably still rocking a BlackBerry
I was.
while the rest of us had iPhones.
I was a little late to the iPhone party.
But you're right. I mean, this is a guy who, the minute they get back from the closing, he's on the phone with the gas company. That's how excited he is about this new house. Yeah. He's calling friends, and he doesn't return a call from the seller. Okay, that seems odd. On April 29th, Melanie told friends, family, and Dr. Miller that Bill attacked her early that morning before storming out of their apartment. She said this was the first time he had ever hit her. Melanie claimed that they got into an argument over a dryer sheet. She told 48 Hours he hated them, and I always left them in the pile of laundry. And from there, the fight progresses to me getting slammed up against the doorway and getting the dryer sheet shoved in my mouth and slapped across the face. At this point, one of the kids is there, and I grab him, scoop him up, and lock myself in the bathroom. Now, there are a lot of reasons why, couples get into arguments. I don't know how many people argue over dryer sheets. Yeah, can they stick to your clothes? Yeah, they do. All the time. I'll go to put on a pair of pants and a dryer sheet will pop out the bottom of the
I hate that.
the pants legs.
Yeah.
But do I immediately turn and start cussing out my wife? No, it's a dryer sheet. It's going to end up somewhere.
If you don't want static, if you don't want
Softness, the smell of the Downy. I love all that.
Yeah. If you don't like it, bounce it out of there. See what I did? Bounce it out of there.
I got you. But if what Melanie said was true, this is a very serious case of domestic violence.
Sure it is. In front of your kid, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes it even worse. I mean, getting slammed up against the doorway, getting slapped across the face. Bill threatened to take the boys and she would never see them again. He packed his things and drove off. That same day, Melanie spoke to attorneys about filing for divorce and went to the courthouse to get a domestic violence restraining order. She did not go through with the restraining order because the court was crowded that day. The following day, Melanie went to family court to get a restraining order against Bill. Now, I just wonder how many people are listening and thinking, I don't care how crowded the court is. If I'm in, this terrible situation, I need to get this thing.
That's what I'm thinking,
But it could be that, she had to get back to whoever was watching her kids.
Yeah.
You just never know in some of these situations. But could you read into it that, maybe she didn't need it that badly?
Maybe. I mean, she didn't have an issue telling her friends, family, and doctor what happened that day. And I think anybody in that family of hers that would have heard that would have said, hey, I'll watch the kids. Go do what you have to do.
And take as long as you need.
Yeah.
As time passed with no word from Bill, his sister questioned why Melanie didn't report him missing. Melanie explained in 48 Hours, it wasn't unusual for Bill to have a tantrum and leave. But I get it, right? If you're someone's sister and that person is missing, I think you're going to have questions of the spouse. Why have you not reported the person missing?
Right.
On May 5th, 2004, a fisherman in Virginia's Chesapeake Bay found a suitcase floating in the water. An officer opened it and found human legs, dismembered from the knees down. Okay? That is going to be a bad day for all involved.
Yeah, he's not going to get home early that night.
On May 11th, another suitcase washed up on the shore of Fisherman's Island. Inside was a man's torso, severed at the waist, with the head and arms still attached. And all of this would be bad. I have to imagine that would be even tougher than finding the human legs.
I would think so. And the fact that it's 7 days later than the first suitcase, so that means more
decomposition, more smell. But you also have a face, a head. A fisherman and his wife found a third suitcase on May 16th that contained additional dismembered remains.
I think at that point, if you're out there and you're finding a suitcase, I feel like maybe you're like, let's just turn around.
Well, I don't know if all these people open them. I would think by the time the third suitcase is found, you're like immediately calling the police.
Right.
We're not touching this. We're not opening this. I don't want to see what's inside this. Also, I'm thinking, I got to find myself a different place to fish.
For sure. Yeah.
Because there's too many suitcases with body parts floating around here. The body had been drained of blood, wrapped in garbage bags, and packed into 3 matching suitcases. The medical examiner found 2 .38 caliber bullets in the torso and entrance and exit wounds in the head and chest. Okay, this is giving me some Dexter type vibes.
Sure.
Now, the draining of the blood, the wrapping in, garbage bags and things like that. And he didn't put them in suitcases. He didn't shoot people. He was more of a stabber. But the draining of the blood. And I took that to mean that had been done before the dismemberment.
Right.
You're talking about some macabre stuff here.
But if you're going to do something like that, kind of benefits you to drain the blood.
Yeah, I would think easier done with the body drained of blood, as sick as that is. On May 21st, the police released an artist sketch of the victim. Within days, an anonymous caller contacted the police suggesting it was Bill McGuire. The Daily Record reported that the caller was Susan Rice, whose husband Jonathan served in the Navy with Bill and remained friends with him. A fingerprint check confirmed the body was Bill McGuire. So it must have been a pretty good sketch for this woman to say, oh, yeah, that looks like Bill.
Yeah.
And call in. When everything else keeps getting pricier, like paying the bills or buying groceries, GoodRx helps keep your prescription costs low. From diabetes to allergy relief to heart health. Save up to 80% on prescriptions for you and your family, pets too. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy for big savings on both brand and generic medications. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Use GoodRx to save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not, and could beat your insurance copay price. And that's what I found with GoodRx. There are times when using GoodRx is cheaper than my insurance copay price. So why would I not want to check every time I go to the pharmacy? Who doesn't want to save money? Beat high prices at the pharmacy and save up to 80% with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince. And I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. Melanie had filed for divorce on May 25th, 2004. 4 weeks after her husband disappeared, the police notified her that his body had been found. She had her first interview with a Virginia Beach detective. On June 2nd, 2004, she described how Bill attacked her on April 29th and said she heard him rummaging around before he left. He said she would never see him again. She reluctantly admitted that the 3 suitcases belonged to her and Bill. Melanie mentioned that Bill had a habit of saying things that angered people, and he often gambled in Atlantic City. She suggested the police could find Bill or his vehicle there.
So he's a gambler. Maybe he's hooked up with the wrong people in Atlantic City.
Maybe he owes somebody some money. When you have a habit of saying things that anger people, could somebody want to do you harm? Yeah, obviously. But to me, the big thing here is her admitting that the 3 suitcases are theirs.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That Bill left and took the suitcases with him? Somebody killed him and used his own suitcases to pack up his remains?
It's strange for a guy to take a suitcase, let alone 3.
3
right?
suitcases? I don't even know if I own enough to fill 3 suitcases. She was asked if Bill used Easy Pass, an automatic toll collection system that is pretty common on the East Coast. Melanie told the detective that Bill had an account, but didn't always use it. 2 days after the interview, Bill's car was found at a tow yard in Atlantic City. It had been abandoned at a motel. So the car is found in Atlantic City. She mentioned to police that he often gambled there.
Right.
And that maybe you'll find his vehicle there. And that's where it was found.
Conveniently.
Only Bill's fingerprints were found in the vehicle. His cell phone and pamphlets for hotels in Atlantic City and Virginia Beach were also found in the car. In the glove compartment, police found a syringe and a vial of chloral hydrate, a sedative.
Really? Chlorohydrate. You ever injected yourself with that?
No, but I think you're playing it off as if you don't know exactly what chloral hydrate is and you don't have your own stash, which I think is pretty funny. The prescription was made out to a patient of Dr. Bradley Miller. It was filled on the morning of April 28th, 2004 at a Walgreens in Edison, New Jersey. And I didn't even know you could get a prescription for a sedative that came in a syringe. Like you're literally poking yourself with a sedative?
Well,
That's been prescribed?
and I guess, how do you monitor the dosage?
I have no idea.
You really trusting the patient to not exceed.
The recommended dose. But the key here is obviously, right, that it's Dr. Bradley Miller.
Right.
According to State versus McGuire, records show that Melanie dropped her boys off at daycare about 12 minutes before the prescription was filled, and the Walgreens in Edison is about 1.5 miles from the daycare, about an 8-minute drive.
So pretty suspicious.
Very, I would say very. There's the Dr. Bradley Miller tie. There's her in the area of the Walgreens.
Yeah.
At the time that the prescription was filled. The prescription was ordered by Dr. Miller on his prescription pad, but he denied writing the prescription. And a handwriting expert later determined the writing was not his. The expert couldn't definitively say Melanie wrote the prescription, but she couldn't be excluded either.
Well, she was the nurse at his office, and she was sleeping with him, so she could have got her hands on that prescription pad.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say, when you're sleeping with someone, you might have a little more access to things than you would just in your normal course of business, at the clinic.
Yeah. A little more free range.
Free range. When people are taking their clothes off, okay, there's the ability to maybe get into somebody's pocket. Maybe he wore his lab coat over. I don't know. Maybe they were role playing. I don't know.
Maybe she was the doctor and wore the lab coat.
I have no idea. This thing could have gone a myriad of different ways.
It really could have.
The managing partner at the clinic later testified that he and other doctors were unlikely to prescribe chloral hydrate for their patients. He said nurses were allowed to sign prescriptions, and it was not unusual for Melanie to sign Dr. Miller's name. So the first part doesn't surprise me. Like I said, I was kind of flabbergasted that, they're prescribing this kind of sedative in a syringe for patients to use at home. What does surprise me is that nurses were signing prescriptions, and maybe that happens more often than I think it does. But for her to be signing his name, that has to be out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah,
and against some code.
I think DEA probably came down pretty hard on that kind of stuff. I don't think you can do that.
Dr. Miller's patient later testified that she had appointments with him in March and April 2004, but he never prescribed her chloral hydrate, and she had never been to the Walgreens in Edison. Soon after Bill's car was found, media outlets reported that the police had surveillance video of the person who parked it at the motel. And I think if you are the person who parked the car, upon hearing that, you're going to need a change of underwear.
Yeah, I think you shit yourself.
Yes, because it has to feel like the bomb is about ready to be dropped.
Kind of reminds me of our Patreon episode where the individual had to keep changing their story because certain things were dropped on them. I think it's going to happen in this story.
Well, it does for sure, a little bit, because after these reports came out, Melanie told Dr. Miller she drove to Atlantic City on April 29th to search for Bill and his car. She claimed she found the car in the parking lot of the Taj Mahal Casino. And to spite Bill, she moved his car to the Flamingo Motel 1.5 miles away. She then took a cab back to Woodbridge because she was tired. She napped during the ride, so she decided to take another cab back to Atlantic City to get her own car.
Well, I'd be pissed if someone took me from the Taj over
To the Flamingo.
Yeah, well, what the hell?
1.5 miles away. But, like you said, right? Okay, some information comes out. She's not talking to the police.
Right.
She's talking to her lover and kind of trying to explain things to him. State versus McGuire also reported that before traveling to Atlantic City, Melanie drove to a motel in Edison and paid cash for her room. Melanie claimed she made 2 additional trips to Atlantic City on May 2nd and May 18th to look for Bill and check on the car. So first of all, she doesn't give a rat's ass about Bill and where he's gone. And now suddenly she's worried and she's making multiple trips to Atlantic City to check on him. Although at one point she does move his car 1.5 miles away out of spite.
But she wants to check on it and make sure it's okay because it's over at the Flamingo and, we never know what's going to happen over there at the Flamingo.
If it was at the Taj, it'd be much safer.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
A detective later looked into her statements and found no record of taxi fare to Atlantic City in the early hours of April 30th, 2004. So Melanie had been caught in a major lie. On April 30th, she went to the courthouse to testify in order to get a restraining order. She claimed she didn't know where Bill could be found, despite moving his car hours earlier.
Yeah, that's a big lie to be caught in.
New Jersey authorities took over the case in October 2004, based on the theory that Bill was killed in his home state. Melanie was identified as the prime suspect. And I don't know how she couldn't be. I mean, number one, she's the spouse, so you've got to eliminate the spouse as one of the first people. But then also, once you get caught in a lie, and especially in the lies that she was caught in, okay, that's going to rocket you up the suspect list.
Oh, yeah.
New Jersey police soon learned that Melanie purchased a .38 caliber handgun in Pennsylvania on April 26, 2004, just 2 days before Bill went missing. However, this weapon could not be found.
But he was shot with a .38 caliber.
So that for sure is not going to lessen the focus on you.
Right.
If anything, it's just going to intensify it. You purchased a gun a couple of days before Bill goes missing. For some reason, you go to Pennsylvania to buy it. And then after, it turns out that it's the exact same caliber as the gunshots that are found in Bill's remains. And then you don't know where the gun is.
Mysteriously, it's gone.
Yeah. After the murder was discovered, Melanie told Dr. Miller and other friends that Bill asked her to buy a gun for him because he couldn't purchase one himself due to a felony driving conviction. Bill had a poor driving record in New Jersey and had 33 suspensions per the Daily Record. In 1997, he was sentenced to 3 years of probation and fines for false tampering with a witness regarding the circumstances surrounding a traffic stop. 33 suspensions is
pretty hefty.
Quite a number.
But it still doesn't look good. You went and bought this gun. You can say you bought it for him, but you bought it 2 days before he was killed with a similar caliber weapon.
But it's just so interesting, right? How everything she says is to try to kind of circumvent or explain what police are finding out.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's like, hey, baby, I know this doesn't look good. You're talking to the doctor, right?
Right.
It doesn't look good, but let me tell you, this is what happened. This is why I did it. And it's not what you think.
Yeah. Or when she's talking to the police.
Yeah.
Right. She doesn't say beforehand that she bought a gun.
No.
Or that Bill wanted her to buy a gun. That comes after they learned that she purchased one. In her application for the restraining order, Melanie answered no to a question about whether Bill had a gun or if there were guns in her house.
And you would think if you really want that restraining order, that would be a yes if you knew that he had a gun, and you knew that he had a gun because you just said you went and bought him a gun.
Right. So, just again, things don't add up. Why do they not add up? It's because people lie. She told Dr. Miller and others that she believed Bill locked the gun in a box, which she put away in storage. During the investigation, the police searched the storage area with Melanie's permission and found a locked box that contained batteries, but not a gun. I mean, you always want to keep your batteries in a locked box because they're so precious.
And you want to be able to find them like 3 years later, and they have all that, corrosion coming out of them.
Acid,
yeah.
battery acid.
Yeah.
The police started working with James Finn, who attended nursing school with Melanie. Finn later testified that he had a romantic interest in Melanie that she did not return. They remained friends and kept in contact with each other over the years. In mid-April 2004, Melanie wrote to him about her marriage problems and made a joke about him owning a gun. She said Bill was acting strange and had started drinking more, and she feared for her safety. In his response, Finn spoke to her about the requirements for purchasing a gun in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Melanie purchased a revolver and ammunition at a gun store in Palmer Township, Pennsylvania. She used her Pennsylvania-issued driver's license that had her aunt's address on it. She continued emailing James Finn after making this purchase, but she didn't tell him about it. And Gibbs, the one thing that kind of stuck out to me was, okay, you're emailing back and forth with this guy. You're talking about your husband, your marriage problems, and you're making a joke that this guy owns a gun.
Yeah.
Meaning what? You could take care of my problems for me?
It may be.
Is that a joke that is somehow a test to see if the other person bites? Could be.
Yeah. Maybe trying to drop it out there and see what she gets back in return.
Without coming out and asking, hey, will you kill my husband? A year after the murder, Finn allowed the police to record his phone conversation with Melanie. She told Finn that Bill asked her to buy a gun for protection in their new home. Prosecutors didn't buy Melanie's story that Bill was involved with shady figures due to his gambling in Atlantic City. As there was no evidence of this, they tapped Melanie's phones and put her and her parents under surveillance. It was during this period that investigators discovered Melanie's affair with her boss.
Oh, so the affair was going on even after all this.
Yeah, before and after. And we talked about her being a focus of the investigation, finding out that she bought the gun, finding out that she made these multiple trips to Atlantic City, that she moved his car. Then you have this stuff with James Finn, and now they find out that she's having an affair with her boss. The police believe this could be a potential motive and secured Dr. Miller's cooperation. Investigators recorded their conversations in which Melanie swore she did not kill her husband. And I'm just wondering, at what point did he have to come out and tell his wife that he had an affair with this woman?
Well, I think when the police are
at your house,
you probably had to say something by then.
Or at some point, I'm sure he had to tell her. A state police computer expert found suspicious Google searches on the McGuire's personal computer, between April 11th and April 26th. The searches included the following topics listed in State versus McGuire: undetectable poisons, state gun laws, instant poison, gun laws in Pennsylvania, toxic insulin levels, fatal insulin doses, fatal digoxin doses, instant undetectable poisons, how to commit suicide, how to commit murder, how to purchase hunting rifles in New Jersey, pesticide as poison, insulin as a poison, morphine poisoning, how to find chloroform, insulin shock, neuromuscular blocking agents, sedatives, tranquilizers, barbiturates, Nimbutal, pharmacy, chloral hydrate, chloral and side effects, and Walgreens.
That's a library of information right there.
Or Gibby on a normal Tuesday night.
Yeah, a couple nights ago, yeah, I had some pretty good searches. But, I mean, clearly, whoever searched this on the computer really wants to do harm to somebody.
Well, and how many of these searches kind of fit with what we already know, right? Gun laws in Pennsylvania. Did she go to Pennsylvania because it's easier to buy a gun in Pennsylvania than it is in New Jersey?
Yeah, chloral hydrate. What did she find out when she searched that?
Yeah, and I think that was a big one, right? That stood out to investigators because the drug was found in Bill's car. And obviously we know there was a prescription. We know it was picked up at Walgreens. You have Walgreens in the searches.
Yeah.
With the help of Melanie's friends, investigators eventually learned about her trip to Atlantic City on April 29th and her admission that she found and moved Bill's car. And all of this was enough to charge her with murder. Melanie was arrested on June 2nd, 2005. Not looking good for Melanie McGuire at this point.
Not looking good at all.
After she was released on bail, law enforcement received anonymous communication directing them to persons other than Melanie. In August 2005, copies of a 4-page letter were sent to a newspaper, Melanie's former attorney, and others. The letter was addressed to the Attorney General and written by someone who was concerned about the children being left without a mother. The writer claimed to have killed Billy Mack because he was unreliable and greedy.
Oh, wait. So the person wrote a letter because they killed him and they wanted to make sure that the police and the public knew they were concerned for the kids and didn't want the mom to be in trouble for something they did.
Yes.
Okay.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because you know how concerned most killers are with other people being accused of their crimes. Now, there have been killers who have been mad because they want the credit for their crimes.
Your Zodiac, didn't he write a letter?
Yeah, but I don't know how many hardcore killers are worried that, these kids are going to be left without their mother.
Right.
The writer provided 3 facts about the murder and dismemberment that were not public knowledge. The letter also contained detailed information about Bill's thoughts and his mistreatment of Melanie. Okay, so you have facts that are not known to the public, and that often lends credence, right? That you were involved in the murder.
It's also a very big risk if they find out if she wrote that letter, because now you just put things in the letter that only the killer can know.
Yeah, but I think it's the second part, information about Bill's thoughts, his mistreatment of Melanie.
Yeah.
How does the killer know that?
Yeah, I think it'd be a hard thing for the killer to know.
Unless the killer was someone really close, a family friend, or Melanie herself.
Sure.
True Crime All the Time is sponsored by BetterHelp. Folks, therapy can feel like a big investment, but let's think about the state of your mind. It's just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, which adds up really fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. And you get quality care at a price that makes sense and can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach. I've used the BetterHelp service for years. And I love the fact that, I can connect with a therapist in a comfortable spot in my home on my laptop. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/TCAT today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TCATT.
Want to lose up to 15% of your body weight? Fridays helps you achieve lasting weight loss. We combine GLP-1 medication with nutritional coaching, mental health support, and fitness plans tailored just for you, all included in one monthly price. At Fridays, one price every month, all doses and everything is included. Getting started is simple. Take our quiz and get connected with a provider to start your journey. Fridays is certified by Legit Scripts, so you know the medications are produced safely by accredited pharmacies. Check us out on Trustpilot with over 1,000 5-star reviews. Don't wait. Save $100 off any plan when you start on your weight loss journey today. Visit joinfridays.com and use code AUDIO. That's joinfridays.com, code AUDIO. joinfridays.com, code AUDIO. Medications will only be prescribed by a licensed clinician if deemed medically appropriate after a thorough consultation. Results are not guaranteed and may vary by individual. Compounded products are not FDA approved or evaluated by the FDA for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Please visit our website for important drug safety information.
On October 11, 2005, Melanie was indicted on 4 charges: first-degree murder, second-degree possession of a weapon for unlawful purpose, second-degree desecration of human remains, and third-degree perjury. I got to be honest with you, Gibbs. I really don't understand the different degrees of perjury.
I was just thinking the same thing.
You either lied or you didn't lie.
Is it just? I thought it was just perjury. I didn't know there was different degrees.
Well,
that's a really bad perjury right there.
Yeah, this is just a white lie, so it's only third degree.
Yeah. Next time I'm caught lying, I'm gonna be like, wait. Is it a third degree lie?
Or first degree?
First degree lie?
Or second degree?
Because, if I'm going to take heat for it, let's label it so I can determine what type of heat I should take.
That day, the prosecutor received a package that contained a letter supposedly from a coworker of Bill's sister, Cindy Ligosh. The writer enclosed items that were allegedly found in the trash at Cindy's office building, including Bill's ring and bracelet, an empty ammunition box, a key to his car, a key to a lockbox at a storage facility, rubber gloves, prescription medications, and marijuana wrapped in tinfoil. The package also contained sheets of paper with writing that the sender claimed was Cindy Ligosh's.
So what does that even mean?
I don't know. I feel like someone is trying to cast suspicion in different directions, right? Was it Bill's sister that killed him? Was it this person who somehow has a soft spot for children and doesn't want their mother to be framed for this?
It does seem suspicious, but not for the suspicious reasons you would think.
Yeah. The return address was a realtor's office in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. However, the address was incorrect and the wrong number was listed. The shipping charge for the package was paid with an American Express gift card purchased on October 9th at a Rite Aid in Passaic. Surveillance showed a woman walking into the pharmacy, but Melanie could not be definitively identified. A forensic linguist pointed out similarities between known samples of Melanie's handwriting and the letter addressed to the Attorney General. On October 26, 2006, Melanie was indicted for the anonymous communications sent a year earlier.
Not good for her.
No, because as you said, right, there were facts disclosed in that letter that only the killer could know. So if it's proven that she wrote and sent that letter, it's very damaging. Melanie McGuire's murder trial started on March 5th, 2007. The prosecution set out to prove that the murder was calculated. In April 2004, Melanie did research online about buying a gun, poisons, and sedative drugs. On April 28th, 2004, she drugged Bill with chloral hydrate and shot him while he was unconscious. No chloral hydrate was found in Bill's body, but the state said that was because he was found too late to detect the drug. Melanie then tried to make it seem like Bill abandoned his family. On April 29th, she sent an email to his supervisor stating, "I will be out sick today." His phone was found in his car. It turned out that one of his emails was sent to the incorrect address, which would be unusual for Bill. Prosecutors said that Melanie also used Bill's phone to call his best friend in Virginia, but the friend claimed he did not receive a call from Bill. They argued that Melanie made the call and hung up quickly as part of her efforts to make it seem like Bill was still alive. And I get it, right? The prosecution is laying their case out. They're kind of putting their theories forth. The one thing I will say is that, if all this stuff is true, this woman went to great lengths to try to make it seem as though Bill just up and left and was still alive.
Yeah, she really put some planning behind this.
And some effort.
Yeah.
Now, all of it didn't work out, I'm sure, the way that she thought it would. The court heard that Melanie took a second trip to Atlantic City on May 1st through the 2nd, allegedly with her stepfather, Michael Caparero, to check on Bill's car and create additional false evidence, suggesting he was still alive. Prosecutors alleged that Michael helped get rid of Bill's car and said that Melanie's close friend, Celine Trevises, unknowingly helped clean the apartment crime scene. No charges were filed against Caparero or Trevises. And I could see somebody, being asked to help or offering to help, not realizing that they were actually cleaning up a crime scene.
Yeah, you're thinking, I'm just helping them clean up the apartment before they move into the house and just going to get all this cleaned up. And this looks like blood, but I guess it's just dirty.
Well, I'm assuming that she didn't drain Bill's blood in the middle of the apartment all over the place.
Yeah, I'm thinking she probably didn't. She seems to be somewhat educated.
I think she was smarter than a lot of criminals.
Yeah.
I mean, again, she went through great efforts. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get caught. According to the prosecution, Melanie dismembered Bill's body over the next 3 days, likely with the help of an accomplice using a reciprocating saw and a knife. She wrapped the body in garbage bags and put it in suitcases. And I just want to know who this accomplice is that is helping you cut up a body.
Well, it would have to be somebody that really liked you a lot.
You mean like someone you were having an affair with?
Maybe, because now you are part of the murder, right?
After the fact.
After the fact, yeah.
But here's my thought. She could have done it by herself.
I think so too.
With a reciprocating saw, which is very powerful. Most of them are very powerful.
And she was a nurse, so she has some knowledge of the body.
Yeah. I was watching a crime show the other day, and they had a guy on there who was talking about how he cut up a body. And he said, the trick is you don't saw through bone. That's too hard. You just cut through the joints. Much easier.
There you go.
And he said it just like that. It was so matter of fact. Like he was telling you how to carve up a Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah. Like this is how you do it.
It meant nothing to him. She drove to Virginia on May 3rd, where she threw the suitcases off a bridge into the Chesapeake Bay. Prosecutors relied on Easy Pass records as part of their evidence. In May and June 2004, Melanie told a detective that her caller ID showed a call from Bill's phone to their apartment on May 2nd, but he didn't leave a message. Bill's records did show a call in the early hours of May 2nd, and Easy Pass records showed the transponder in his vehicle, passing a toll plaza on the Atlantic City Expressway at 12:54 a.m., 16 minutes before the call. Phone records also showed that on June 3rd, 2004, the day after her first interview with the police, Melanie called customer service at E-ZPass to dispute 2 charges on May 2nd and May 18th. Customer service refused to remove the charges.
Why would she do that?
Well, the estate alleged that Melanie purposely paid her tolls in cash because she knew using E-ZPass would create records of her trips. No other E-ZPass records were found for travel to Atlantic City, despite Melanie's admissions about making multiple trips.
It's a little flaw in her plan.
Well, but that's the kind of digital stuff, right, that trips people up. The defense countered with evidence of other occasions when Bill was in Atlantic City without corresponding E-ZPass records and argued that Melanie panicked after a detective asked about E-ZPass and didn't want to be falsely implicated in the murder, which is why she made the call to get the charges removed.
I'm sure she was sitting on the couch or chair during that conversation, just couldn't wait for him to leave so she can make that call like, shit, I forgot, E-ZPass.
The state also presented evidence of Melanie's parents' E-ZPass records, according to State versus McGuire. They frequently traveled the highways, but their records showed an unusual absence of activity from April 28th through May 2nd, when Melanie traveled to Atlantic City and Bill's body was dismembered. Okay. I mean, they are potentially throwing out there that her parents could possibly have been involved.
Yeah.
E-ZPass records suggested Melanie and her parents met on May 3rd. Records from the daycare facility show Melanie picked up her sons and gave them to one or both of her parents. Prosecutors said she returned her to her apartment in Woodbridge afterwards to pick up the suitcases to dump Bill's body. Afterwards, she placed the chloral hydrate and a syringe in Bill's car to make it seem like he was abusing drugs, which she told friends.
She kind of set it up already for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of this she did try to set up ahead of time. Brochures for Atlantic City and Virginia Beach hotels were placed on the front seat of Bill's car to make it seem like he was staying in hotels. However, Bill was familiar with these areas and had compensation offers from the Taj Mahal Casino that he could have used to pay for a room. And let's face it, if you're a person who goes to Atlantic City often to gamble, I don't really think you need brochures of the different hotels there.
I think you know where you're going to stay.
Yeah. And you're probably going to be comped if you're any type of significant gambler. The defense emphasized the lack of eyewitnesses and trace evidence. Despite multiple detailed searches, the police had no forensic evidence that a murder or dismemberment took place at the Woodbridge apartment. However, one of the bullets recovered from Bill's body was covered in greenish-brown fibers. The state argued that this was evidence the gunfire was muffled by something like a pillow. A forensic scientist could not match the fibers with the McGuire's couch or throw pillows in the apartment, but Bill's sister testified that the family had other green throw pillows that were not recovered by investigators.
So they were missing somewhere.
Well, and let's face it, if you used a throw pillow as a makeshift suppressor to muffle the sound of a gunshot, are you then going to throw that throw pillow back on the couch with a big bullet hole in it?
I don't think so.
No, you're going to get rid of it somehow.
Yeah, besides the bullet hole on the one side, wouldn't you have a blood and other spatter or splatter on the other side?
Or body material of some sort? Yeah. It's not going to be good. And it's not something that someone is not going to notice when they sit down. One expert testified that garbage bags from the McGuire's home matched the ones that were used to dispose of Bill's remains. When moving out of her apartment, Melanie put Bill's clothing in several industrial garbage bags. An acquaintance who helped her move kept the clothing and later gave these bags to the police. The garbage bags that contained human remains were sealed with tape. A DNA expert testified that they found one of Melanie's hairs on the adhesive tape inside one of the suitcases.
Yeah, but you could argue that, right?
Well, that if tape is lying around. It could have, somebody's hair on it. Yeah, you can argue all these things, but I think the mountain of evidence, right? Could you poke holes in any one thing? Yeah, absolutely. But can you poke a hole in the whole mountain? I think that's when it becomes tough.
Yeah.
Additionally, Bill's head was wrapped in a blanket from a hospital supply company. A representative of the company testified that the fertility clinic that employed Melanie had been their client since 2001.
Well, I guess she figured no one's ever going to find these suitcases. I can wrap it with anything.
The defense emphasized that all the evidence against Melanie was circumstantial and Bill was most likely killed due to his gambling habits. They accused the police of not pursuing these leads. The defense claimed Bill took the 3 suitcases with him on the night of his disappearance. A detective testified, however, that he did not think 3 suitcases would have fit in Bill's trunk, and there were 2 car seats in the back seats of his vehicle. The defense pointed out that the absence of forensic evidence to prove a shooting or dismemberment took place in the apartment. Neighbors did not report any strange noises on the night prosecutors believed the murder occurred. And I get it, right? When you look at a lot of these trials, there is a lot of circumstantial evidence. But here, I think it just keeps piling up, and eventually it's just so high that it doesn't really point in any other direction.
Yeah, doesn't look good.
Melanie did not make any incriminating statements during the investigation, and she said she purchased the gun for her husband because of his prior conviction. Regarding the suspicious searches, the defense got an investigator to acknowledge they didn't know who actually made those searches. The defense pointed out that seconds after some of the incriminating searches, the browser history showed someone accessed the site that only Bill could access because it was password protected. Okay. I get what the defense is doing, but is it not possible that maybe Melanie had that password?
Yeah, she could have.
Although there was no forensic evidence in the apartment, crime scene investigators did find particles of Bill's flesh on the floor of his car. At the time, the media called it human sawdust.
Oh, that's gross, isn't it?
It's very gross. Prosecutors said Melanie transferred the particles to the car after dismembering the remains. The medical examiner testified that the particles were deep layers of skin that would not normally be shed by a living person. Ooh, okay. I mean, we all shed skin, but only to a certain level.
Yeah.
And the medical examiner is saying this is way beyond that level, way deeper. On April 23rd, 2007, Melanie was found guilty of murder, desecrating human remains, perjury, and unlawful possession of a firearm. She was acquitted of hindering her arrest, writing the anonymous letters, tampering with evidence, and drug possession. Prosecutors alleged she was illegally obtaining Xanax to relieve her stress while carrying out the murder and cover-up.
Sure, she was stressed.
I don't know how you couldn't be stressed if you had murdered someone and were in the process of trying to cover it up, dismember the body, and get rid of it. Melanie received a life sentence on July 19, 2007, but she still maintains her innocence. In 2020, Melanie did an interview with ABC where she raised questions about whether it was possible for the gun she purchased to be the murder weapon, saying, "No one plugged the serial number of my gun into a website to find out what the specifications were. There were 5 lands and grooves that my weapon was said to have made based on the company's website. The bullets that came out of my husband had 6 lands and grooves." However, former prosecutor Patty Prezioso told 2020 it was a mistake on a gun manufacturer's website. "We were not gathering evidence from a gun manufacturer's website. The evidence that was at trial was from ballistic experts."
The real stuff.
Yeah. Melanie also discussed the suspicious internet searches and said, "I'm a nurse, or I was a nurse, and I don't need to look up things like that. if I wanted to look for something like that, I have a physician's desk reference. I have a book that I can look in that doesn't leave an internet history.
But it's not as convenient.
Well, I don't think that a physician's desk reference tells you how to commit a murder. It also does not tell you where the Walgreens is.
No, it does not.
She also pointed out an unexplained animal hair found on Bill's body, which was noted in reports. Melanie has joined an advisory group for prison reform, co-runs a meditation group, and has tutored other inmates. In June 2023, she was commended for being charge-free while in custody. Melanie also writes health advice columns for Perceptions, the NJDOC newsletter for inmates, which is posted online. In one newsletter, Melanie wrote that she hopes to get home and care for my parents before they die, and added, I have no contact with or knowledge of my sons. I mourn their loss like a death. In the years since the murder, Bill's family has defended him and said he wasn't a violent person. He was not abusive towards Melanie. They also do not think he would abandon his children. Unless she files a successful appeal, Melanie will not be eligible for parole until May 2073, when she would be 100 years old.
Wow. That is a long time away.
It is, but also justified.
Sure it is. Yeah.
Right? I mean, you took somebody's life. Now, she maintains she didn't. I feel as though the prosecution believes they had more than enough evidence. It seems like the courts, the judge, the jury, everybody else believes that as well, based on the fact that she was convicted.
But the doctor's like going, ooh, man, good thing I'm out of this.
Yeah, I think it probably couldn't have gone great for him from a number of standpoints. Number one, I'm sure his wife had to find out that he was having this affair. And number two, I don't know how many people want to go to a doctor who is kind of embroiled, at least on the fringe, in, this murder case.
Yeah.
And was also having an affair with one of his nurses. All of that had to come out. But there are a couple of things that trouble me about this case. Didn't read a lot in the research about motive, right? That the prosecution put forth. And they don't really have to find a motive. I mean, I'm assuming that most people would think it was that she wanted to be with the doctor.
Probably.
What else? And the other question that I have is, did she really have accomplices? I mean, the prosecution, without, I think, really coming out and saying it, kind of dangled it out there that her parents, in that kind of timeline, it seemed as though maybe they were helping her out. The problem is we just don't know.
I don't think we're ever going to know that.
No, I can't imagine she would rat on her parents if they did have something to do with it. What would be in it for her? It's not going to help her at all. But it's grisly, right? To think about killing your husband, draining the blood, dismembering the body, putting it in 3 different suitcases, and then chucking it off a bridge.
And then all the pre-work into the story, and then all the work she did after that to try to make it appear she had nothing to do with it.
Well, the one thing you would have to say is it wasn't a spur of the moment thing.
No, not at all.
She had put some thought into it beforehand. There was planning. There was stuff afterwards to try to combat the evidence, to explain it away.
I can understand why the sons aren't talking to her.
No, I get it as well. But that's it for our case on Melanie McGuire. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. Good afternoon. This is Brandy in North Fort Worth. I know I've called you a lot the last couple of days about cases, but I just wanted to tell you about this funny dream I had last night. I had a dream that y'all invited me to the studio, and Gibby showed me his wooden chair, and he really had a wooden chair. And I looked at Mike Ferguson and said, "That's it, I'm Team Gibby now." Anyway, keep up the good work. I love the show. I love the podcast. I love you both. Y'all are great. I love the humor between y'all. I love how you take cases that are really gruesome and put a little, how would you say, a little laughter into them, but you respect the dead and you respect the people in the cases so wonderfully. Anyways, guys, again, I love the podcast. Keep up the good work and keep your own time ticking. Thanks.
Well, I used to have a wooden chair. You kept it over here, too, for a while. Whatever happened to it? Did you finally throw it away?
What happened to it was that it never existed.
That wooden slatted chair.
Never existed. Ever. And I think, did we not prove that on the Patreon episode where I hooked you up to the lie detector test?
No,
I think you failed that one.
I passed flying colors.
No, I don't think you did.
Hi, this is Veronica. I'm calling from San Diego, California. Just wanted to say that I started listening to TCAT in November, and I sped through all of the episodes. Love your podcast. I just signed up for Patreon, so I can hear even more of your podcasts. I love you guys. Best podcast out there, and I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. My favorite part about you two is when you repeat each other. One of you will say, like, on a Tuesday, and the other one goes, yeah, on a Tuesday. It's really funny. I haven't heard anybody mention it on any voicemails yet. And then I had a case suggestion from my hometown. It's Ellie Nessler from Sonora, California. She went into a courtroom and shot and murdered her son's abuser. So really interesting case, tons of information out there on it. And she had an interesting life even afterwards. So maybe something you can check out. Have a great day. Keep your own time ticking.
All right. Thanks for the kudos and thanks for signing up for Patreon.
Yeah, Veronica.
That means a lot. That sounds like a very interesting case that we'll have to check out. It's kind of, what's that movie with Samuel L. Jackson where he goes and kills his daughter's rapist? A View to a Kill, or
One with Matthew McConaughey.
McConaughey and Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
He does it in the courtroom.
He does it in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the movie, though.
I think it's a John Grisham one.
It is.
But I don't know if it's A View to a Kill or it's something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Inspired by the hit Wondery podcast Against the Odds comes the gripping guidebook, How to Survive Against the Odds, Tales and Tips for Animal Attacks and Natural Disasters. This might just be the most important book you'll ever read. Go inside life or death situations where everyday people survived nature's most extreme scenarios, and learn how you can too. In these tales, you'll hear about the grit, willpower, and know-how needed to endure shipwrecks, alligator attacks, earthquakes, and more. You'll learn from experts, including top doctors, about what happens to your body and mind in life-threatening situations. Plus, important tips on what to do, and equally important, what not to do when faced with a situation that is truly against the odds. Go to survivalguidebook.com to pre-order How to Survive Against the Odds today and get the perfect gift in time for graduation and Father's Day.